It's the first speech of the first meeting of the first year, 2022. So we decided to book someone who was very smart, very savvy, very seasoned and wise. A gifted speaker who had a meaningful message to impart. Unfortunately, Carson Schaefer was not available, so we have to settle for this guy, Jordan Camenker. Jordan will be giving us a speech out of the researching and presenting pathway, hoping to inform and ultimately persuade at least a few of us to follow him down the long, winding road. Let's welcome distinguished Toastmaster, my friend Jordan Camenker, who will give a speech, Pericles Revisited.
This is very upsetting because I intended first to give a speech about a racetrack. I wanted to give a speech about adopting my kids. Unfortunately, they still claim me, so I can't do that. So you're left with New Year's resolutions. I actually thought I was going to be the first one to speak on the original draft. My name was first, so sorry about that. So, well, it's that time, isn't it? We do New Year's resolutions. So I was thinking about resolving stuff and resoluting, and I got to thinking, you know, some years ago, actually you don't know because I never told you, I actually came into a quite valuable inheritance. Now, despite my lavish lifestyle, that's all appearances. I don't actually spend a whole lot of money. As a professor, I get paid once a month. They give me a little wheelbarrow with nickel rolls. So I haven't touched the inheritance. Maybe I can do something meaningful with that. Then, of course, there's exercise. Exercise is always good. Losing a little bit of weight. You thought the Battle of the Bulge was in '44. No. No. So, oh, and then, of course, my mind got to wandering. Just a few months ago, I finished a cycle that started almost 19 years ago. Here, in this club, in February of 2003, I spoke to this august gathering, and I asked the question, do the ancients have anything to say to us? Is there anything we can learn from them? I had been pondering that after 9/11. I understand 9/11 is nothing like January 6th. I understand that. But that's all we had back then, so I was thinking about it a lot. How do things like this happen? And is there any wisdom we can get from the people who trod before? I decided that perhaps they do have something to tell us. And I started by talking that day about Pericles' funeral oration. So this is recorded in Thucydides' book about the Peloponnesian War. Thucydides was, some people say Herodotus was the first real historian, but he throws in a lot of made-up stuff. Thucydides really was more of an historian, and he actually was there when Pericles spoke, and he fought in the war. And we have a pretty decent record of it. Pericles was the great leader, a passionate believer in democracy. Athens was fighting the oligarchic, non-democratic Sparta, the barbarians. And at the funeral of people who had fallen, Pericles, their leader, was inspiring them. And he told them, you know, we are the envy of the world. People come from all over for our art, our literature, our culture. We are great warriors when we have to be, but we are also civilized people, and we can enjoy the finer things. We will get through this. And he reminded them, of course, that it was the Greeks, in no small part the Athenians, who had fought off the Persians. You remember the 300 and the Battle of Thermopylae and so forth. Indeed, it was a huge victory for Western civilization anyway. It wasn't long after that that Pericles was dead. Ultimately, if you're talking about winners and losers, the Athenians lost the Peloponnesian War. And yet, there may be something in what Pericles said. I invited the Toastmasters to join me in reading the great books of the Western world. Some time ago, in the early 50s, under a group organized by Encyclopedia Britannica, the eggheads got together and asked the question, what are the greatest works in Western civilization and in what order ought they to be read? And they created a 10-year plan. And I got some Toastmasters and friends from all around, and we started reading. It took us 19 years. We finished a couple of months ago. We went at our own pace. In the 80s, they created a second list, excommunicating a few works that they thought were passé and adding a bunch. We covered all of both lists. And now it's time to start anew. So I am inviting you to join me. Do you want to ponder? Some of us think, you know, the ancients no longer are relevant. You really don't know until you've taken a look at them. What is, for example, the purpose of life? Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living. What is truth? Go take a look at Plato's Allegory of the Caves. Who teaches us about rhetoric? Well, my goodness. Aristotle was the first with his book on rhetoric. And it's right in here. All the way down to Mark Twain, who said, there is no difference between the person who can't read a book and the person who won't. My son Noah asked me the other day, Dad, why do bad things happen to good people? He's a very contemplative guy. I was able to talk to him about the book of Job, and was able to conclude with the bard. Sweet are the uses of adversity, which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, wears yet a precious jewel in its head. And this, our life, exempt from public haunts, finds tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. When you hand in your feedback sheet, your little ballot, give me your email address if you want to be on the next iteration. Join me in the discussion about the books. Toastmasters.